Welcome again to our Bible study time, and also called Sunday School. And today I have a special guest with me as part of our class, and that's my wife, Elaine, because in a moment we're going to get to that part of Proverbs which talks about who can find a wife, a great wife. Well, I found one, and she'll make some comments here in just a minute. But let me introduce us to where we are in our going through the book of Proverbs. We've gotten to the last chapter. Chapter 31, and where it says, the sayings of King Lemuel, an oracle, his mother taught him. And so we don't know for sure who this Lemuel is. Some people think it was Solomon, going by an alias, or it could have been someone else. Bottom line, no, God wrote these, no matter what human instrument he chose to write it through. And it says he's going to share now these sayings. He's going to share are wise words he got from his mother, showing the importance of a mom's role in the life of her children. And this whole chapter is dedicated to that. So first of all, he says, one thing that my mother taught me was in verse 4 of Proverbs 31. It says, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what the law decrees, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights." Now that's one of the main reasons that I personally am a teetotaler. Got nothing against others who imbibe fermented beverages, because in a minute it says who those are designed for. But it says here, it's not for kings. In other words, those who are in a position of authority, or those who are in a position where decisions need to be made that have not been, affected by having alcohol in their system, to make sure they can speak here clearly and think clearly. It's not for kings to do that. Now, I would like to think of myself, I'm not a king in the sense of the word of a ruler like that, but Jesus said we are a kingdom of, and a nation and a people of kings and priests. And I would like to think of myself as having a role of influence in Christianity, where that role has been my role as pastor for many years, or now a pastor to pastor, and a missionary. In other words, those who are on that front line of teaching and giving instruction need to make sure their mind is always clear every moment, and being ready and on ready at every moment. And their judgment does not need to be clouded by alcohol in any way. And so it's not for kings. Now, other people, if you say, well, I don't want to have that position, and I don't want to be on the front line, I'd rather be on the back line, and so forth, and behind the scenes, and so that I'm not called upon at any moment's notice, and so I'm going to go ahead and partake. Well, it says then, the next verse, give beer to those who are perishing, wine to those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. And so there is a place for alcohol, it says, and those who are dying. I watch these old westerns, and they have them give them a shot of whiskey, and or before the doctor operates, he said, take this shot of whiskey, put a stick in their mouth, and bite it, because this is going to hurt. So it's given to dull the pain, and actually dulls the mind also. And those who are in anguish, and you know, today we also could go to the drugstore, and the doctor could prescribe certain medicines, whether they're antidepressants or whatever they are, to help us get through our emotional pain. And so, in fact, when I get a real bad cold and a cough, the only thing that really helps me when I get a cough is NyQuil. And I forgot what percent alcohol NyQuil is, but I gladly take it because it seems to cut that cough, and I can sleep all night long. And however, getting back to what the normal rule of thumb for me, this is me personally. It says it's for kings. Here's something for kings and those in such a position. It says, don't drink any wine and don't drink any beer. And so I apply that to my life in the position that I'm in my ministry. You may be in a different position. All right. Let's skip ahead now to verse 10. And we're going to read verse 10 through, let's go through verse 12, 10 through 12. And my wife has the Message Bible, and I'm going to ask her to read 10 through 12.
A good woman is hard to find and worth far more than diamonds. Her husband trusts her without reserve and never has reason to regret it. Never spiteful, she treats him generously all her life long. She shops around for the best yarns and cottons and enjoys knitting and sewing. Now, I'm not sure because this doesn't have.
Don't have the verses?
No.
Okay. Verse, what I have you read it through? Verse
12.
12.
She's like a trading ship. What's the next one?
Okay. See where in my Bible. 12 says she brings him good and not harm. And she,
Okay.
yeah, that stops there.
That stops there.
Okay. Now, notice her husband has full confidence in her. And as we were studying this together, Elaine made a comment to me about my confidence in her has probably grown over the years. Be able to have full confidence in her. And you referred to what when you were saying
Yes, I just remembered when we were first married, every Tom, Dick, and Harry that would come to the door, a salesman, I would buy something because of the fact that I didn't want him to feel like he was rejected. So that wasn't good. That was not good. Roger would come home. I remember one time it was a vacuum cleaner, and that wasn't good, especially since we were newly married and didn't have the money. But so it does come in stages as far as the husband understanding the wife and where she's coming from, and not regretting what I've done. So.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a vacuum cleaner. This was a Cadillac, a vacuum cleaner. I forgot the name of it. It cost big, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which we did not have. And but as the years went by, I fully trust her now with the checkbook and the credit card and whatever she wants to buy, and I don't question what she buys. But as in most people, confidence, and even the wife having confidence in the husband that he'll make right decisions concerning the family. That's something that can grow as the marriage continues to grow and as both couples grow and mature in the Lord. Okay, the next section is, let's see, verses 13 through 16, and it starts talking about she selects wool and flax.
Goes on to say, she shops around for the best yarns and cottons and enjoys knitting and sewing. She's like a trading ship that sails to faraway places and brings back exotic surprises.
Through the field and buying it, buys a field through that verse.
She's up before dawn, preparing breakfast for her family and organizing her day. She looks over a field and buys it. Then, with money she's put aside, plants a garden. First thing in the morning, she dresses for work, rolls up her sleeves, eager to get started. That it? She senses the worth of her work, is in no hurry to call it quits for the day.
Okay. So it says here that she gets up early in the morning to fix breakfast. Now I love that. Now she don't have to get up too early because I don't get up too early. But however, when we had kids at home, maybe kind of tell what your schedule was when we had children at home.
Yes, I would get up before the children and make their lunches for the day, and then I would prepare their breakfast and then get them up, and we would start the day that way with a good breakfast and off to school.
So understand as we read Proverbs, as we've said many times, these are general guidelines. Maybe you don't make lunches for your kids because they're not allowed to take their lunch to school. They have to eat in the school cafeteria. Or maybe you homeschool and you don't have to pack them a lunch. And so understand, you adjust what we're saying here according to your family and what's going on. But these are general truths. And understand this as it describes this woman. She looks like the ideal woman, but so we can go from there and work from that and think, well, how do we all measure up? Other places it talks about ideal husbands. And as I read those, I can get on a guilt trip or think, well, there's areas that I need to work on. And so as we think of this also, it says she has servants. Now, we've never had servants. I don't think I've ever got you any servants.
No, we had children.
Yeah. And yeah, what do you mean by that statement?
We would ask them to do things maybe that a servant would do.
Okay.
Make sure their beds are made, their rooms are clean. One thing told to our kids, I told them that this is my home and they have the privilege of being in my home. So their rooms were to be straightened up each day and beds made. So that was our servants.
Yes. So it is a privilege for children to live in our household, meaning they have to abide by the rules of our household, and they get to participate in many things in the household. Not that they do everything that a mom is supposed to do, but they can help mom out in different ways, as Elaine has just shared.
One thing that we had was when we lived in Kansas was a big garden, and so that was something that the kids were to help weed. They were given 30 minutes a day to weed the garden, and then they would help with the preparing of the food once it's on the table, and also when we would can it for the winter. So they would help in that way.
And so, see, children, by doing that, are not only helping take a load off of mom, but they're also learning responsibility. They're learning a work ethic early, and they're learning responsibility because on occasion I've seen families where nothing is expected out of the children. The mother works her fingers to the bone, dog tired, when she goes to bed at night, and the kids haven't lifted a finger to help at all. And then when they get out and go off to college, they don't lift a finger there, and they don't know how to clean their room or anything. And some of them go out and get married, and they still don't know how to clean their room even when they get married. And so it's of vital importance what Proverbs is telling us here. And so it also talks in this section about how that she would some of her business ventures that she had. And before I skip this thing about servants, what else today in our American society, most people don't have servants unless they're very rich. And you probably wouldn't call them servants, you would call them maids and butlers. But what might a woman have in her home today that is a maid or an assistant to her or a helper to her in some way? It's not a servant, but it could be other things that she has in her house that serve her. What might some of those things be?
Well, when we were first married, we did not have a washer or dryer, so we would have to go to the laundromat, which was a chore in itself. But now I have a washer and dryer in my home, so a washer and dryer would definitely be one of those. And the microwave, I remember our first microwave, and when we lived in Kansas, was $500, if you can believe that. But wow, it was a great tool. Probably the most, if I had to give up, if I had to choose one appliance, it would be the dishwasher that I would keep. I can do without the others, but the dishwasher. I love the dishwasher because we eat a lot at home, and it seems like I'm always doing dishes. So I love the dishwasher, and when we're entertained, that is a big help as well.
Of course, we've lost our human dishwashers called children.
Yes, we have.
And I hate to wash dishes, so I'm glad to invest the money for my wife to have a dishwasher. And speaking of that husbands need to invest in whatever it takes for the wife to be able to fulfill her calling, her duties, her chores, her responsibilities, whatever, to make life easier on the wife. And the husband needs to invest in the raw materials that are needed. Obviously, this husband in Proverbs, in his case, he got her servants. And of course, back in those days, they didn't have electrical appliances like electric stoves and refrigerators and all of that, and microwaves and dishwashers. So he hired some servants for his wife. And so men, let me talk to you a minute. You shouldn't expect things out of your wife unless you're going to invest. And not only for some of these basic necessities we're talking about, of cleaning the house and with vacuum cleaners and all that kind of stuff, but also for your wife's ministry, whatever it might be, and investing in her. I remember one thing that my wife, every time I would come home, sometimes she'd go shopping, she'd have more placemats, and I'm thinking, how many placemats do we need? You know, there's only however many people in our home at that time. We had 3 kids, so 5. You only need 5 placemats. And so what's the deal with all these other placemats? And your reasoning for more placemats was?
Well, I really feel like one of my gifts, my main gift, is hospitality, and I love having people in my home. But I also love a beautiful table, so I would invest in tablecloths and placemats, and I love to set a nice table. So Raj realized that, and he would agree to. I would buy the placemats. I'm even looking at right now is across the way some placemats that are on the buffet over there. Those are my recent ones I got when I went to let's see. Oh, I know you don't know. When we went to fishing, Branson area. So they were on sale. They were on the sale table, and I picked them up. And Roger just shook his head when I got home, but. I really appreciate the fact that he allows me to do that.
So, for the first few years of a marriage, I was a typical man who was ignorant and thought, well, I don't understand why she would need this. Well, I have learned that if she says she needs something, take her word for it, and I may not see it logically, why in the world, and why would we spend money on that?
Well, you have to have different placemats in different seasons. So I had seasons.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. See, that never got through my male brain. So see, we're a team. I have the male brain, she has the female brain, and together we make a good team. So, but this here, the husband provided these things for his wife to have. So at times, where it says she goes on these business ventures, I think, did you get to that where?
Yeah, it's the next verse.
Okay, go ahead and read that.
It says, she's skilled in the crafts of home and hearth, diligent in homemaking. One thing, when we first got married and talked about having children and working and all of that, Roger, we had come to the conclusion that I did not have to work. I wouldn't work when I had children. So, okay, what can I do to help with the finances? Well, I made candles there for a while, and I got to be pretty good at it. And the kids would help in that venture. I did that for a few years, and then I started, when the kids were older, I started cleaning houses. So I did that for several years. But part of that hospitality is I love a clean home as well. And so I enjoy cleaning other people's homes. The messier the better, because when I left, I felt fulfilled when it was all clean and ready for the patrons to come home. So that's what I did for some extra money in the home.
Okay, so understand that she's saying here, she didn't neglect our home to go work outside the home. She made sure that our home was taken care of, the kids were taken care of, the husband was taken care of. Then, if time was left, and of course this comes in stages, because when you're first married, you don't have any children, and so you have that time of husband and wife, and the wife may choose. In fact, when we first got married, you did work some part-time out of the home. And not full-time, because sometimes husband expects their wives to give as much income to the marriage as he does, or to work 40 hours a week just like he does. But at the same time, he turns around and wants her fixing 3 square meals a day, wants her cleaning the house, wants her to wash dishes, wants her to wash the clothes, and wants her just to be all fresh for him when he gets home from work. And that's kind of unrealistic demands that some husbands put on their wives. I'm just saying that the wife's main career is homemaking. And then once the homemaking is taken care of, if there's time and energy left to add to that and working outside of the home, just like this lady, she went and found some property and bought it and resold it, and other things that this lady did, but not to the neglect of her homemaking responsibilities. And so it comes in stages. So no children first, and then after a while, children come along, and quite frankly, I've never understood myself why some people want to have a baby, and they get a baby, and as soon as the baby's maybe 6 months old, the mother wants to get out in the workforce outside the home and away from the baby, and leaving the baby in the hands of babysitters, daycare workers, whatever. And I've often asked, and I understand there's extenuating circumstances, and there's some single parent moms, and sometimes the husband is sick and can't work. I understand all that. Like I said, we're not making rules for you, but we're talking about general principles here. And I'm thinking there's nothing greater that a mom can contribute to the baby, and especially the toddlers and kids in their early formative years, than her presence in the home. In fact, one time, I remember one of our kids asked Elaine, why didn't she work outside the home? And what was the real question, and who was it that asked you that?
It was our oldest son, David. I think he was around 12, maybe. And he said, Mom, why don't you go to work so we can have stuff? And the stuff, I'm not sure quite what he was wanting to know, but what to have. But I said, well, Dave, if I went to work, I wouldn't obviously be here when you came home from school, and usually I had snacks for them when they came home from school. But I think the biggest reason that I would not have gotten was when they get home from school, it's been a long day, and they're ready to talk about what's gone on that day. I remember one day in particular, Gina came home from school, and she just wasn't acting quite right. And I said something to her dad. I said, Raj, I said, Gina, something's wrong with Gina. He said, how do you know? I didn't hear it. But
yeah, she looked okay to me.
She did, but I knew there was something. And sure enough, there had been some trouble with the other girls, I think, in the class. And she opened up, but I don't think she would have opened up if I wasn't in the home. Plus, when they became teenagers, they knew that I was going to be home, and that kept them out of some trouble, I do believe, later in their teenage years. So I loved being home with the kids, especially when they got home from school. I loved summer because they were home all the time. I enjoyed having the kids at home. So interesting. No, we didn't have a lot of stuff as far as, I'm not quite sure exactly what he wanted. Luxuries maybe. The luxury of maybe, I don't even know what he was talking about, but God did not allow us to buy a house for several years, and still, for whatever reason, I think it's because he wants us to be footloose and fancy free to be able to go and minister whenever he wants us to. So quite interesting. When David did get married, his wife did not work outside the home. So I think she is now. The kids are gone, but and she was a great wife to. She's a great wife to our son. So he saw the importance of the mom being home.
And sometimes we think that maybe women don't contribute much financially if don't have a job outside the home. Well, let's think about this. We've already mentioned it costs a lot of money for babysitters and child care workers, where that doesn't have to be, not that on occasion, hey, if you want to go on a date night, get you a babysitter. Go on a date night together. But for a consistent thing of paying every week the babysitters and the child care workers so the mother can work at an outside job. A lot of money is being saved when the mom is at home. You have to pay those things. And I think of other things like it's a lot cheaper to eat at home than it is in a restaurant or carry out and bring it home. And I have met entire families where there's no cooking done in the home because maybe the mom says, I don't have time to cook, and I'm so tired and I don't want to cook. What was you saying?
No, she didn't have the energy.
And doesn't have the energy to cook because she's working outside the home. And but think how much money is saved. It's a lot cheaper to eat at home than it is to get food from a restaurant. And besides that, it tastes a lot better when it's a home cooked meal. And so she can contribute many ways to the financial well-being of the home. And then also by her cleaning the home herself and not having to hire someone to come in and clean the home. Because sometimes when Elaine did work and went to clean house for others, most of those cases was those ladies where she went to worked outside the home and they would hire Elaine to come clean their house. And so there's many ways that the wife can offer financial assistance to the home by being a homemaker.
We mentioned that earlier, having a garden, a big garden, and canning and freezing. So that was a big help.
Yes. In fact, we just put up several jars of salsa, which we do every summer. And I guarantee you those jars of salsa are a lot cheaper than buying salsa in the store. Besides, the homemade tastes a lot better. And so in those ways, the wife contributes. And so sometimes I hear, especially some women would say, well, I would get so bored if I stayed at home because there's nothing to do. Well, I feel sorry that they haven't found something to do because I think their idea is if I stay home, I would just be sitting around on the couch watching soap operas all day and eating bonbons. And is that what you did as you were coming up in our marriage?
No. Raising the children was a big thing, but I would make sure that I would exercise, and I would make sure I would be in Bible studies with groups of women or doing one-on-one myself. And we loved, the ladies in the community loved getting together, and we did that a lot. A lot of times we would can together as well. We would do projects. No, I never got bored at all because I would find things to do. From exercise, we've exercised ever since, and we still do, and Bible studies. So, group Bible studies and one-on-one. So,
Okay.
mentor another lady.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother Alford. One way that she contributed financially to the home was her egg money. And back in the day, when a lot more people had chickens, and of course, where'd you get the chickens? Well, my grandfather would help provide her again with the basic necessities. He'd buy her some laying hens, and what that is chicken that can lay eggs. And so she would take care of those chickens, and she'd get enough eggs to feed the family, but she'd have extra eggs, and she'd take those eggs and sell them, and that way she had extra money, not just to be spending money to spend on herself, but for other things also. And you also mentioned gifts. Making gifts is a way of contributing financially. How does that save any money when you do that?
Oh yes, if there was a birthday or anniversary or just for whatever, I would make gifts. I would, there again, my candles, I used those as gifts to give away to friends instead of having to go out and buying a gift. I'm not really all that crafty, but God had given me different ways to give gifts. Food, I love to cook. And so I would, in fact, for our son David's birthday this year, he doesn't need anything. I made him his favorite chocolate fried pies, and I make some homemade soup, and I had just cooked a turkey breast and took over some turkey breast with the soup, and so he loved it. Those are great gifts. Food, making pies, cakes, a casserole. Something like that are great gifts as well.
And not only gifts for our family, but gifts for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you appreciate it when someone goes the time and effort to personally make you a gift as opposed to just buying something at the store? I know you can go in the Hobby Lobby and you can buy what's called shadow boxes, all kinds of knickknacks in the shadow box and hang it on your wall. I don't know what they cost, but one year Elaine made shadow boxes for each of our 3 kids with mementos of her dad, their grandfather, and had mementos of him in those shadow boxes, and that meant so much to them. And you go to their homes now and see that shadow box with a prominent place on the wall. So see there, you wouldn't have time to do that if you were working at a full-time job outside the home. And there again, don't get on any kind of guilt trip if you do work outside the home in a full-time job. You do whatever God leads you to do. We're just saying here some principles and some ideas to consider as we think of this. Now let's go ahead and read verses 23 to 27. And I think you stopped at it starts with her husband is respected at the city gate.
Okay. Well, let me just back up just a second. She makes her own clothing and dresses in colorful linens and silks. Well, I have to say, I am not a seamstress. This is something that Roger would love for me to do in the past.
I even bought her a sewing machine.
I know, but my brain just doesn't work that way. So anyway, that is not something that I have done, or I have done but don't enjoy doing. But now I love to dress in colorful linens and silks. Now I do love that. Okay. Her husband is greatly respected when he deliberates with the city fathers. So good, keep going.
Yeah.
She designs gowns and sells them, brings the sweaters she knits to the dress shops. Now this is where I fall short. Okay. Her clothes are well made and elegant, and she always faces tomorrow with a smile. Now I would like to say that I would do that. No matter, she faces tomorrow with a smile, knowing that God is in control. I mean, we've been through lots of ups and downs. We've been married 54 years in November this year, and with having 3 children and spouses, and all, we've had all the ups and downs that married people that has been married that long has had. But also realize that God is in control, and tomorrow is another day, and that He is going to bring good. He promises to bring good out of every situation. So I feel like that I can face tomorrow with a smile, because I know that He is in tomorrow.
We stop reading there.
Okay, when she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say, and she always says it kindly. That is my goal. My goal in life is that if I say something, that it's going to be uplifting to the person that I'm talking to, and I always say it with kindness. In the past, and being a pastor's wife, you hear a lot of gossip, what's going on, and I like to say, the verse that I like to say is, I know nothing but Christ and Him crucified. So that stops the conversation right there. So, and I try to say it kindly. So, okay, she keeps an eye on everyone in her household and keeps them all busy and productive.
Okay. So now I appreciate that about my wife. She kept an eye on all in the household. I knew, I had full confidence in my wife that she was going to be taking good care of our children, not just putting clothes on their back, food on the table, wash behind their ears, and all that kind of stuff, but giving them instruction and teaching them about life. As she already mentioned about when she'd sense one of our kids was having a problem with somebody else or whatever, and she helped them through those times. And one of the greatest colleges in the world is to go to the school of mother. And in fact, that's what he says here when he begins. He says, I learned these things from my mother. And not that the father doesn't also teach, but the mother teaches also and instructs the kids about how to live life, how to respond to life, how to respond to disappointments, and all of these things in life, how to get through tough times in life. And so thank God, my kids have had that kind of a mother, and they'll tell you that to this day. They appreciated the raising that she gave them. And so, but if she'd have been gone all the time, there'd have been that void, and a lot of that would have been missed. And I appreciate her willing to find her fulfillment, mainly as a homemaker and as my wife and as the mother of our children. So wrap it up now.
I want to
right?
say,
Okay.
I want to say something here. I was not raised in a Christian home. I had an alcoholic mother, and my dad, poor thing, he had to have 2 or 3 jobs just to feed 6 children. So he was hardly ever at home. So, and I never remember my mother telling me that she loves me. I never remember that. So when I had children, God gave me creative ways to let them know that I love them. Not only saying it to them, but also showing them in ways, for instance, in their lunch boxes. I would write notes to each one of them, especially I would let them know that I'm praying for them, especially if they had a test coming up that day or they were having a problem with one of the kids in their class or something like that, that they would know that I'm praying for them. Also, I would put notes on their pillows at night from time to time to let them know that I love them. So, okay, now you can wrap it up.
Okay. Now we got to verse 28. As we wrap this up, her children arise and call her blessed. Isn't that great? Her children arise and call her blessed. I have been in homes where that's not so, and the children. In fact, I referred to that last week, where there is a generation that curses their mother and their father, and they don't honor their mother and their father. And there's a group that does that. But and I can see why this lady's children. Now, if your children don't do that, and you're doing the best you can to be a good mom, and still your children don't respect you, they're going to have to answer to God for that. So don't get on a guilt trip about that. But generally speaking, this is true, that her children rise and call her blessed. And just like my own mother, I thank God for the mother I had, who was very similar to this woman, just like Elaine, here in Proverbs, who I knew when I got home from school, she'd be there waiting for me with fresh baked cookies, glass of milk, conversation or whatever. And before I went to bed at night, she'd come in. And of course, when I got too old to tuck in, so to speak, she didn't have to tuck me in, but she would come to my room. And if I didn't get home at midnight for some reason, and she would pray with me and kneel down by my bed and pray with me. And so I rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. And so, see, the good wife, the husband appreciates it, and he praises her. Now, husbands, do you do that for your wife? Do you praise your wife? She needs to hear you praise her. She looks for those words of affirmation for praising her. So many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Look at this. You surpass them all, you see. And so many women do some great things out there. I mean, I think of some great women, that throughout history, but my wife surpasses them all. And that's what he said should be our attitude towards our wives. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So gals, as you get older, the wrinkles will come, the hair may get gray and all that stuff, but that's something that's fleeting. But the true beauty of the Spirit can last. And it says, give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. It should be known out there what kind of a wonderful woman that she is, and give her the reward she has earned. So I hope husbands and children, you're giving mom and you're giving the wife the rewards that she has earned, and don't hold back from giving to her what she has earned. All right, this concludes Proverbs in this study today. Anything to add? All right. Okay, well, God bless you and God bless your family. That's all.